Hi. So in this video, like you seen in the title, I'm gonna be showing you how I made a bodycon, like a long sleeve long bodycon crochet dress. So in case you might find this video one day from YouTube, I made a TikTok video, like a little mini tutorial, you know, displaying the dress, and I've got a lot of requests to make a tutorial and show you guys how I made it. So here we are. And just a little disclaimer, this dress was very free-handed. It might not be the perfect tutorial, but I'm just gonna show you how I made mine. For materials, we're gonna need measuring tape about 5 mm, the smallest hook, 5 mm, to around 6.5 mm crochet hook, and scissors. So when I made the original dress, the first dress that I've made, I used weight for acrylic yarn. I used Big Twist because that is very stretchy, and for this project I honestly believe that you really need stretchy yarn. This is a bodycon dress. Because it's acrylic yarn and it's so much coverage, I would not recommend wearing it when it's very hot, because acrylic yarn will keep you very warm and it'll make you sweat, and I already sweat a lot, so but I would wear it on like a cold summer night, or like even in spring. I mean, right now I think it's spring, but it's really cold here, but it's perfect for when it's a little chilly but not too hot. I am about an extra small, so I used about 510 grams, and I'm also 5'3", 5'4". I used 500 grams of weight 4 yarn for the dress, and with the fox fur I used no more than 100 grams. Also keep in mind that the amount of yarn you may use will change according to your sizing. But in this video, I am going to be using cotton yarn, and I know cotton yarn is not stretchy. It's cotton and 20% polyester. So we're going to start off with 3 pieces for the dress. So the back panel and the 2 front panels. So for the back panel, I will start with the back panel. You're going to need measurements shoulder to shoulder. This is where the measuring tape will be needed. So I was measuring from my shoulder to my next shoulder in inches, of course. And I'm usually around like a 14, 15. So 14. When you're using acrylic yarn in a bodycon dress, you always want to size down. I usually size down about 1 inch for my back panel. So back panel lines up to 14. I'm going to make mine around 13. Now honestly, I'm already finished with my back panel, but I'm just going to give you a little example of what we're doing. So the back panel, of course this is just used for example. You already got your length and everything, and then you're gonna skip the first chain, and you're gonna have double crochet into the next. I used half double crochets in most of the dress until we get to the bottom. You want to get it finished really fast, and I switched to double crochets. But you're gonna do a half double crochet into every chain. Now when you get to the end of that foundation chain 1, you're gonna turn your work around. Now if you're left-handed, it's gonna be this way for you, but I'm right-handed, so. And then you're gonna put a half double crochet into every stitch, and this is what we're doing the entire thing. So half double crochets in every stitch When you get here, the end here, you're gonna chain one, flip it again, and we're doing the same, we're repeating the same thing until it is long as here to your under bust. Now we're done with the back panel. Put that to the side, and now we're going to work on the two front panels. This is how the front panel is going to look. I did one of mine's. This is how it's going to fit. So you're going to need measurements from your underarm, so like in the middle of your armpit, so or like around here, from there to your almost the middle of your chest. Now again, your arm is stretchy, so we're going to size down a little bit. The middle of my chest will be 9 inches, so instead of 9 I would do 8. We don't want too much material here, and because of the neckline of the dress, it is supposed to show a little breast. So if you, unless you want full coverage, then you do that, but it might be too much material, especially if you're using acrylic yarn. You always want to size down 1/2 inch or 1 inch. Even if you want to way tighter than that, maybe 1.5 inches. Okay, that's how we learn, by experimenting. In here for my breast panel, let's skip that first chain like we always do, and we're going to half double crochet into every chain until we meet the end. So you want to keep track of how many chains you made, because you're gonna have to repeat that again for the next panel. Or if you made it and you don't remember how much, you could just count the stitches at the bottom and add 1. When we get to the end of that row, just like we did with the back panel, you're gonna chain 1, turn your work around and work in the opposite direction. Half double crochet, and we're gonna have double crochet into every chain, into every stitch like we did on the third row is when we start decreasing. The later you wait to start decreasing when you're doing the chest panel, the more coverage you're gonna have. So let's say you start to decrease on the second row, that's gonna reveal a lot more of your boob. If you want more coverage, you could start decreasing on the 4th. Depending on how big your boobs are, you might have to do a couple more rows before you start decreasing. Honestly, it just really depends on how much coverage you really want and how big your boobs are. So that might alter a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to chain 1. And now I'm going to start decreasing on my third row. We're only decreasing on one side. So whatever side you chose to decrease, stick to that side. You're not decreasing on both sides. I'm going to skip a stitch. So a chain actually. So you see this one chain here. I'm going to skip that. That's the first chain. You're going to skip your first chain and you're going to half double crochet into the next. So I'm skipping this one and I'm going in here to half double crochet. And then boom. That's the beginning of our decrease. You see the little space, the little gap there. Then we're going to half double crochet into every chain. And we're only decreasing when we get back over here. Now, if you might struggle with that, I would advise you to put a stitch marker right into that gap so you remember exactly where to decrease so you don't mess it up. As we approach where we decrease, your stitch marker should be around here. We're going to decrease again. So we're going to skip the second to last stitch and we're going to have double crochet into the last. So as you can see here, I should flip the camera, but I think you can see from here, I have 2 remaining stitches of this row. So 1 here, and the second one is right here. So 1, 2, I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna half double crochet into this one. So skipping this one right here, we're gonna skip this one, and then we're gonna half double crochet into the last stitch of that row. You see the gap? I'm gonna chain 1, turn our work around, and then we're going to decrease again because we're on this side. So we're going to skip that first stitch. See, that first stitch is right there. We're going to skip this one, and we're going to have the crochet in here. So skip in here, and we're going to half double crochet in here. Okay, and that's how we have it. So we're going to decrease until we have a decent width of a strap, because this part is going to be attached to the back panel. So we want to have, you know, a fair enough size, a decent size for that strap part. So I'm going to keep decreasing until we get down to half of the panel, like here, how much we're going to decrease. And I'm going to get back to you until I get up here. This is the last row I'm going to get decreased on. So remember, you want it to be even on both sides. For here, this is about 9 stitches. So you always want to make sure it's even, okay? Chain 1. And wherever you decided to stop decreasing, we're going to do the old regular thing like we did when we started. We're no decreases, no increases, anything. We're just going to half double crochet into every stitch. Now, to know how many rows you need to do, count the amount of rows that you did on your back panel. You want this to be even so it won't look too wonky. So I did I think 24 rows here. So on both of these, I'm gonna make 24 rows. So when I stitch it up and line it up and everything, it looks perfect. With your stitch markers, it's not that necessary. It all depends on you. Some people it's very helpful. Some people, they don't really need stitch markers. But you can put your pieces together. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to attach this top part of the breast panel to the back. Okay? So you can add a stitch marker on the 2 edges, and wherever this ends, attach it there. This is 8, so, or 9. So 8, 9, and then on the 9th one, you would attach it to here. So that's what we're going to work on first, is attaching the shoulder parts together. I'm going to slip stitch the panels together on the shoulder part, so in there. And we're going to do this all the way down so until we reach the end. Chain 1, cut this, now we're just going to slip stitch the other side. So we finish both of the shoulder part. That's how it should look. And we have 2 rows. Remember the 2 rows that we didn't decrease on? Those are the 2 rows we're going to attach here. Remember, when you're slip stitching, make sure you're slip stitching on one side. We're going to work on attaching these 2 together, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab the second row. So it's 1 and 2. This is the second row. We're going to put the hook through there, somewhere around there. See? And do the same thing for the next one. because we're going, okay, so we're going from the second row down to the edge here on the first row. So we're gonna go somewhere around here, just insert the hook in there on the edge. We're gonna slip stitch, then we're gonna find another spot, and we're gonna slip stitch in there. And then somewhere near the first row, you're just inserting this into any gap or any space on the edge of these two panels, okay? And you really want this part to be tight, so that's another thing. This is the end, I can't go any further, so this is what we want, okay? But honestly, I'm just gonna chain one, tighten it with the yarn, and then boom. Part is so sturdy, we're good. Now on to stitching up the sides. At this point you should get the concept. We're slip stitching into these little gaps around the edge on both panels until you reach your desired arm depth. Connect it together and slip stitch all the way up here. I am already stitched up, slip stitch like about 2.5 to 3 inches up from the bottom. So here it might be different for everyone. So now I'm going to size up. So I'm going to chain one right here. I'm going to chain one, and then we're going to have double crochet into each gap on the edge. Now you have to be careful with this and make sure you're not increasing way too much. So I'm right here, so the next gap I'm going into is this gap right here. Have double crochet in here, because the more double crochets you put here, the bigger the sleeves is gonna be. You don't want the sleeve to look too baggy. Every gap on the edge. So here, you see what I'm doing? And we're gonna go around and we're working in a spiral. Next gap is here. The next half double crochet is gonna go in here. And this is how it should look by now. Kind of like a crop top. Yeah. Ignore this, I have to reattach this. As we're moving on, we're basically working in a spiral from the crop top. From the edge here, we're working in a spiral all the way down to however long we want it to be. So as you're getting down there, you're gonna decrease. Well, this part is really gonna be a lot of guessing. So for some reason here I was struggling to explain it, but what I was basically saying is that to know how much you have to decrease, you have to know the difference between your bust and your underbust. So for example, the difference between my underbust and bust, or like that band area, is like 5 inches. So I would have a lot more, I would have a decent amount of decreasing to do. So I would decrease every 5 stitches to help get down to the size that I want, so it could really fit my waist. If you have lesser than that, let's say the difference is about 2 inches, then I would decrease every 7 stitches. If mine is 8, I would probably decrease every 4 stitches. But at the same time, you do not want to decrease too much on that first or second row. You want to gradually decrease as you go down to the waist. As soon as it's fitted, as soon as it fits and it's perfect, you stop and you keep working in a spiral. No increases, no decreases. And another thing, if you have a very small waist and broader shoulders, do not decrease too much on your waist part, because you want to be able to put the dress on over your shoulders. Unless you want to put it on from like your butt, but you don't want to stretch. You know, if you have a big butt, you don't want to stretch it out too much. So be mindful of that. The yarn is stretchy, but we're using half double crochets. So if you have a way broader shoulders than your waist, you know, make sure that it can pass through your shoulders. Also, if you're in a situation where you don't want to constantly, you know, keep trying the dress on to see if it fits, there's another thing that you could do, that I always do, is for example, let's say you want to make sure that the waist part of the dress is going to fit you. Measure your waist. My waist is around like a 28, so I would divide that by 2, which would be 14. I would lay my dress on a flat surface, measure that waist part of the dress on the flat surface. So the measuring tape would go from one end of the waist to the next end of the waist. And since we're sizing down for this bodycon dress, it should be around a 12 instead of 14 or even 11. But make sure that you stretch it and see how far it stretches. So when I stretch that waist part that lines up to 12 inches, it should stretch to at least 14.5, because my waist is around 28, 29. So when you're starting out the waist, it really doesn't matter where you start, in my opinion, but you can start off at the seam. A lot of people like to start off with the seam. Get your yarn in there, chain 2, already chain 2, see right there. And then we're going to start on the waist. And remember, whenever you're decreasing, try to tighten your stitch, because you don't want like crazy big gaps. So just tighten it a little bit. I'm finished with the lower waist, upper hip length. So whenever I got like around here and I know that it was tight enough, stop decreasing and just work it around in a spiral around probably when it got to like 9 inches. I didn't really measure it. I just seen that it was long enough and I tried it on, and it's actually, it is long enough. So from there, we're gonna start increasing, because we're approaching the widest part of our hip, which is a, you know, like that butt area. Working on the hip of this dress is very similar to the waist, so there's no specific amount of increases, and we're not increasing in this specific row. So we're working in a spiral and we're gradually increasing as we approach the widest part of our hips. What would be important, what would help you out, is knowing the difference between your waist and the widest part of your hip. So that amount of inches can give you an idea of how much of increases you have to do. But as you increase, you try it on, see how it fits, or you lay it on a flat surface, stretch it out, measure it like I showed you earlier. And the minute that fits perfectly fine, it fits your butt really nice, you stop there and you just keep working in a spiral all the way down to your ankles. No increases, no more decreases, no more increases. At this point, I am at my underbutt area. It is wide enough, so I stopped increasing. For the first dress, I did do it. I made it to touch my ankles. In this video, I'm not gonna do that again, because I don't feel like it. That takes forever. And at this point, you should kind of get an idea of what you're doing. After you pass the butt, you're going to size up to a 6 again. You're going to size up to a 6. And when you get like to the knees, I size up to like a 6.5. You can even size up to a 7 if you want to. And by the time I'm like past the knees, I do double crochets. I'm going to show you how it's looking. I'm using like a weight 3, I think. So it's very see-through. It's not going to be see-through when you're using a weight 4 acrylic yarn, okay? So we're around here, the butt area. And I get a lot of people asking, like on TikTok, the fur yarn. How do you attach the fur? The fur is yarn. It's regular fur yarn. That's how it comes. You can find it. If you want access to more colors, you can go on like different websites. Fur yarn from Hobby Lobby. Michael's have them, Joann's have them, literally everywhere. I chained one, and I'm gonna double crochet into every chain, and you're gonna do 2 rows of that on each sleeve, and then on the edge of the dress. I have the original dress on. I'm just gonna show you how it's not that see-through as in the video, in the TikTok. See, not that see-through. The length of the dress is around like 64 inches. I am 5'3.5" to 5'4", so if you're taller, it's gonna be way longer. Or if you're thicker, it's gonna be way longer. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sorry, I know this tutorial was all over the place, but honestly, I was not in the mood to remake this dress again. I made it like twice. This was the 3rd time working on another one, and I was not in the mood. Let me know if it was helpful in the comments, or you could just text me privately if you remake it. I want to see. You could tag me, or you could just send it through my Instagram or whatever social media platform you find me on at Crotician. And if you're from my TikTok, I appreciate all the support. Thank you. And if you have any more questions about the dress, let me know. Bye.